Good afternoon. We are live for the starting today our CAS talks, our IEEE Circuits and Systems talks promoted by the CAS Rio Grande do Sul. I present today Professor Ricardo Reis. He's going to give the talk today about challenges in the design of integrated circuits for IoT. He is from the Institute of Informatics from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. So Professor Ricardo Reis is electrical engineer from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul and has a PhD degree in microelectronics from INPG in Grenoble, France. He's also Doctor Honoris Causa from University of Montpellier. He's a full professor in the Informatics Institute in this university. His main research includes physical design automation, design methodologies, fault tolerance systems, and microelectronics education. He has more than 700 publications, including books, journals, and conference proceedings. He's also received many awards, like the CAS Meritorious Service Award in 2015. He was vice president of CAS for 2 terms. He was also a founder of several conferences like SBCI, LASCAS, and also was the general and program chair of several conferences like IEEE ISVLSI, SBCI, VLSSI SLC, ICECS, and Patmos. He's also received the Researcher of the Year award of our state in Rio Grande do Sul. Professor Reis was also a member of the DLP program in 2014 and 15, and also has done more than 70 invited talks in conference. He's a member of the IEEE CAS Board of Governors and also the CIDA Board of Governors. So thanks, Professor Ricardo Reis, for giving out this talk today.
Thank you very much, Claudio, for this introduction. So it's so today is my time to give a talk, and thank you all the attendees to join us today. So as you know, my talk today will be about some challenges in the design of integrated systems for IoT. So now, as you know, IoT is everywhere and increasing a lot the applications that are connected to the internet. So the first point is that we are in a trend without return, that more and more everything ends in a chip. So the idea that is being developed since a long time is more and more a reality, where we put all computation and the electronics in just one chip. So we can find nowadays silicon everywhere in the whole set of applications in the economy and in the society in all around the world. So there is many social implications on this, but this is could be another talk about. So if you see the number of estimated devices connected to the internet, if you see last year, it was estimated at about 50 billion of devices connected to the internet. So when you see this increasing number of devices, so this is one of the factors that we see that the semiconductor industry is increasing year by year. So it's always growing everywhere, and an effect also of this is that we have to consider several issues related to this set of devices connected to the internet. And 3 of them are here: power consumption, reliability, and security. So there is some text that I have done about this in this publication that was done by Springer. And so considering some aspects of systems nowadays, if you see the point of view of embedded systems, so power consumption is a major issue, but in many applications also reliability and security. So it depends on the kind of system. We are going to work more or less in security, but all systems, more and more, we need to consider power consumption. When you see computer architecture, similar. Also, power consumption is also a main issue. For sure, also reliability and security is also 2 points. When you see a fault-tolerant system, the main issue is reliability, but also power consumption is still there. And any kind of VLSI system design, also power consumption is more and more the main issue, but also you have to consider reliability and security. So if you see a little bit about the history, considering power, we can see that the power and reliability are problems that are a reality since a long time. So when the first computer in 46 had more than 18,000 tubes and more than 1,500 electromechanical switches, you can imagine all the costs related to the maintenance of this infrastructure and the amount of power for, at that time, a very little computing power. No? So all this room now is has less computing power than we have in any portable device. So a keyword in IoT is optimization. So this is one of the main points that I would like to address today. And first, considering power consumption, then we are going to give some highlights about reliability and security. So power consumption. So if you see the devices connected to the internet, we can find small devices or big devices. So someone could say, well, we should do more, big effort to reduce or to do optimization or reduce power consumption in big devices as they are big. And some small devices, they are very small. If you consider just one small device, the power consumption can be very low. But the point is that a large set of these small devices, they are fabricated in a large amount. So what is important is to consider the percentage of power reduction that we can do by optimization. And considering the large set of small components that we can find in the Internet of Things. So this is also important. That means that it's important to consider power reduction, optimization of power consumption in any kind of device, if they are small, medium, big, and so on. But when you consider reliability, so reliability is something that we have to take a lot of care when we are working in critical applications. If we are working some applications that are not critical, like a TV set, if you have a fault in 1 pixel of the screen for a moment, it's not a major deal. Probably the person that is seeing the TV is even are going to identify that there was a little problem for a moment in this screen. So depending on the applications, we have to take care with the reliability of the devices, and some others we don't care. We are not going to spend more transistors to increase reliability for things that don't need. So considering the number of transistors that are fabricated in the world, so these are really big numbers, and this graph is not in scale. So if you see the bar related to 2014, in 2014, it was fabricated 250 quintillions of transistors in the world. And in 2017, so 3 years after, it was 1 sextillion. That means 4 times more in 3 years. And this is increasing year by year. And what is the main problem is that to run each transistor, we need power. So are we going to cope with the necessary power to move all these transistors that we are using more and more each day? And with the Internet of Things, is kind of even bigger explosion on this. So we have to think about some change on design methodologies to cope with this. At the same time, people that are working on technology at the level of design. So another interesting point is about just a curiosity, is about the transistor per capita. If you consider also this data from 2017, that we had 1/16 of transistors fabricated in the world, the world population in 2017 was 7.6 billion inhabitants. In last year, it was increased to 7.81 billion. But comparing in 2017, so that means that we have around 131 billion of transistors per capita produced around the world. So for sure, some people have much more transistors, are using much more transistors than others, but this is the average considering the worldwide population. So a nice number. So another point also related to all this evolution is that what is strategic to any country, to any location, is to invest in education, in good human resources. So investment in science technology is fundamental to provide innovation for industry, and the industry is responsible also to improve applications in a lot of fields of economy, like agribusiness, healthcare, transportation, and so on. So in all this process, we need more and more dedicated solutions. So this is something nowadays we have many nice solutions, but they are using much more devices, much more power than it would be necessary. So this is something that means that we needed to do some changes in some design approach. So also another point that justify why optimization is a keyword in NanoCMOS is that more and more we have systems that we needed to include embedded systems on them, and most of them that are portable devices and so on needs low power. And the one way to reduce the power is to reduce the amount of components. And if you see at low level, it means reducing in the transistor count. So another interesting data here now from more than 10 years that was published in The Economist. Some people bought a package of rice in a supermarket in California, and also in an electronic shop in front of the supermarket, they bought some chips, and the count was that a grain of rice had the cost of more than 125,000 transistors. So we can consider from this that the rice is expensive or that the transistor is cheap. So if the transistor is cheap, why we have to take care in reducing the amount of transistor? Why we needed to optimize the circuit in all levels of abstractions? Because energy is expensive, so this is one point. And another one, that power is also related to reliability. And also that we are not going to have sufficient power to run all the transistors that are being fabricated from now. So, and now we can observe that most circuits are using more transistors than needed. If you verify any solutions that you can find in the literature, they have sometimes very, very nice works, but then they arrive at a logical level. They just implemented the physical part of physical design as they can without any care about reducing the components that is still possible to do. So one main goal is to reduce the transistor count, but also the connections in a chip, because connections take space. Connections is a big problem nowadays to do the routing of many big systems. No? So if you talk with people working in the main companies that are producing the high-end system on chip with several CPUs inside, they will agree with you that connections is becoming a huge problem. So also we can see some other situations where power consumption is bigger than the power dissipation capability. And this is also a problem that will increase a lot when doing the design of 3D chips. Not only TSV 3D chips, but also the monolithic ones. So this is another reason that we have also to work to optimize the power, and one way is to reduce the components. So about the power to run all these transistors, we are having more and more. So how many power plants we will need to cope with this Internet of Things or Internet of Everything old? So this is a major issue. So I think it's time to take more time to consider to do a real optimized circuit. And when we are saying optimize a circuit, consider one application, that means to do a dedicated chip. So the use of general chips and so on, they can work, they can solve many problems, but they are far away of having an optimized solution, mainly considering power. So one solution also is at the architecture level. So considering the increasing use of hardware accelerators, so this is not a trend, this is nowadays a reality. So I'm using here as an example the Apple chips. So if you see here this layout of Apple 8, so we have 2 CPUs, 4 GPUs, but almost half of the layout of the chip, the floorplane of the chip, is occupied by hardware accelerators. So they have 29 hardware accelerators in this Apple chip. So one for sure is for cryptography. So we don't need to use the CPU, the GPU to do cryptography, because the data we want to do the encoding or decoding are the data that are arriving to the chip or going out of the chip. So this cryptography hardware accelerators should be connected to the I/O pins. No? So here another example, also the Apple 12, A12. So you see here 4 GPUs, 2 CPUs for high performance, 4 small CPUs for low power. So when you are using your cell phone in low power mode, is these CPUs that are running. We have 8 neural processing units also, but you can also see here that almost half of the chip is also a large set of hardware accelerators. So this is not a trend, as I told, but is a reality. If you see the Apple A13 is also similar. And so all this part of this photo where there is no identification of CPU, GPU, and so on is a large set of hardware accelerators. No? So and this also brings the concept of dark silicon. So that means that is on only the accelerators that are being used in a specific moment. So this is something that is very important to consider. So we can have maybe a large set of transistors here, but only the blocks that are being used in a moment, they are on. The other ones are shut down. So this is anyway, in each one of these blocks that are on, it's important to have optimization to reduce the power consumption when this hardware accelerator or any block is being used. So one challenge is to do power optimization in all levels of design abstraction. Sometimes we see some people saying that, in some levels we can do a bigger optimization than others, but the point is that the final optimization is the summation of optimization that we have done in all levels of abstraction in the design process. So it's not a question of option to work in one in another level, but to try to reduce power consumption in all levels of application in the design flow, and then the result will be the summation of this optimization that we have done. And for this, we need more and more power estimation tools, so that power estimation tools dedicated to each level of abstraction with sufficient precision to provide the decisions that we need to do in the design at each level of abstraction. So a lot of circuits now also are using standard cell approach. It's a very nice approach being used since a long time, a very stable flow and so on. So it will keep being used for a lot of time, but it's far from optimization considering area, number of transistor, wire length, delay, and mainly power. So if you see a little bit of a history of the evolution of the logic design, if you see in year 70s, the microprocessors were handmade. So the computer was used that time only to do the design like a sketch, and there was no tools to do any synthesis of the circuit. So if you see, for example, the Z8000, all the control part is a direct mapping, direct optimized mapping from logic level to physical level. Many logic cells, like for example an NAND, in any part of the chip, the same NAND is designed in a different way with a different sizing, considering the environment where this NAND is being inserted. I can testify this because I have done myself the reverse engineering of the Z8000, where I was able to find a lot of very interesting issues that they consider. And this was really very, very interesting design, and very complicated, no? But very interesting. And all the layout of this, the chip was really with a very deep optimization. And then end of year 70s, started the using of blocks like ROMs and PLEAs in the control part in such a way to being able to start optimizing the generation of the layout, the physical design. So the 68000 is a good example of this, where the control part is mainly done using a big ROM with microprogramming level and nano programming level. And then years 90, we start a move also to use a standard cell style. So like in the Intel 486, Pentium, and so on, where this style of it's not really standard cell because they are not using a already done standard cell library, but the library is being constructed during the design. For the technology, they are going to be available when it's expected to have the design ready. No? But the style is like a standard cell. So, and then we think that to really do a good optimization, we need to go back to using random logic, but now doing the synthesis of all these cells. So this is a good way to do optimization. So here is just by curiosity, a detail of the control part of the Z8000. You can see here not many empty spaces. One observation is that was NMOS technology with only one metal level, so it was not easy to do all the routing. And but it's impressive how compact was the solution they have provided at that time. So interesting data here that was published in ICCAD 87 by Detjens, considering the number of stacked NMOS transistors and the stacked PMOS transistors. So if you consider a limit that is not the real limit of 4 transistors NMOS and 4 PMOS transistors is stacked at once, we can have 3,503 different logic functions. If you consider 5 NMOS in series, it goes more than 28,000 different logic functions. And if you see a regular library, standard cell library, it goes between 50, 70, not more than 100 different functions. And each cell, each function, normally have only 3 sizings. So for low power, for less area, and for a lower delay. So that's all. And so this is a restriction we have when we are using standard cell approach, because when you do this step that is called technology mapping, that means to take the equations and to change them to cope with the functions that we have in the cell library, this is a desoptimization step. So when if we can do the layout of any logic function. So for sure, we have a large engineering space, to have a more optimized solution. So this is the point that, and an example that I always show is that about this very small equation here. So it's implemented by 4 gates, so 3 NORs and 1 inverter. You have here all the transistor networks, so that means 14 networks for this solution. It's okay. But if you implement the same function by just 1 big gate, so we reduce it to 8 transistors, so a big reduction in the amount of transistors. And this also means a very important reduction in the amount of connections. And as I told before, connections is more and more one of the most biggest problems in the design of the physical design of big systems, integrated systems. So also reducing the connections, also reducing the vias. So also we are working to reduce routing congestion. So also more and more the delay are due to the connections, as you know. So the reduction of connections in changing this, doing this optimization at logic level means so important than the reduction in the amount of transistors. Also reducing the amount of transistors, we are reducing the footprint of the chip. That means that we are also working to have big the large connections being in their lengths reduced because the chip is smaller. So in modern technologies, less transistor means less static power. So everybody knows this. So this is another reason to reduce the amount of transistor. And less connections and vias helps to improve the routing, and also improving routing, also improving delay. So we think it's time to change the physical design to be a design of a network of transistors and not a design of a network of logic gates from a library. So this is a tool that was developed in our university. It was a PhD thesis by Adriel that now is working in Canada. So with his tool, we are able to do the automatic layout of any function, any network of transistors, even bigger ones composed by several networks together. So here is an example. A small multiplier can receive 4x4. Compared with a standard cell provided by a vendor. So in the top we have the 4-plane of the layout of this multiplier using a vendor tool, and then the other solution is generated with our approach. So, but the main point here is that we reduce the amount of cells using our cell compiler, but there was a very important reduction in the transistor count. And this is the main reason to have a nice reduction in power consumption. So, and also we had a reduction area and delay. So we can also work here to, if you want to still improve the area or still improve delay and so on. So we have this, can manage with this compromise. But it's clear here that for exactly the same function that is a multiplier, we had a very nice reduction on power consumption, mainly to the reduction of the static power. So one point here to construct automatically all this, so just some highlights. So this is also the subject of another talk, is to have the basic template of a transistor. Then you can put, if you put the 2 transistors template side by side, we have an index structure. Then if you insert some Lego bricks of connections, we can start constructing the circuit. So this is one approach that we are considering It is not the approach that was used with Astran. Now also we are working on another alternative, that is the Altran, where we are doing the synthesis for circuits to be fabricated using FD-SOI, and because the Astran was done to design automatically the layout of technology using bulk. So also you can do a large set of considerations when designing 3D chips. So it's not going to be the point today. As it was announced in the beginning of this talk, in July we are going to host a seasonal school on monolithic 3D with more nice set of talks about 3D design. So considering now the points related to reliability. So some applications that are like, for example, medical applications, we needed more and more to have, in one hand, ultra low power. So, for example, people that needs to have some circuits to help in the function of the heart, nowadays, in several solutions, they need sometimes to do a surgery to change batteries. So this is something that is more and more important to design chips where the circuit can run taking the power from the environment. So this is energy harvesting is something that is becoming more and more important to several applications like the medical ones. And for sure, all these chips must have a very good reliability. So, and when we are reducing power, sometimes also we can have more issues related to reliability. So all these 2 points are very important, and that means that we need to do dedicated chips for this. And the applications are not only for the heart, but for many other medical applications. So this is an important area that you have also in CAS talks and some very nice talks related to medical applications. So also, when you talk about transport, is also something that more and more we need dedicated chips. That mean the use of a smaller number of connections, more reliable ones, and also we have to take a lot of care considering reliability. When you do also agribusiness application nowadays, more and more the evolution of agribusiness is in function also of development of smart farms using dedicated chips for several IoT applications in this farm and so on. So it's impressive how deep the applications of semiconductors connected to the internet are evolving nowadays. So some reliability issues we can have internal or external noise, aging, variability, radiation effects. So we don't have time here to address all of them. For example, internal noise is if somebody are using a chip to improve some health problem. If he's walking the street and there is a large noise done by a truck, it should not provide any problem with the chip he's using or she's using. And also internal noise, if in the night you do some noise, this noise should not give any problem to the functioning of the chip you have inside you, things like that. So we observed, so here I missed to put all so this is a paper, it was published by our team in Radex 2019, showing that when we design the transistor set of a function, normally most of people don't take care if, for example, here in this AOI, if, for example, the A transistor is connected to VDD or is connected to the output. So considering logically, there is no difference. No? But we observed that the sensitive nodes change. and also the tolerance to radiation effects also change. So if you want to know more about this, you can address this and other works that we have published related to this issue. So this is something that now we have care in doing the layout or the physical design of a solution, which is the transistor arrangement that we are using. So here is also some data that were published in this paper, and you can see quickly here that using one in another solution, so having the AOI transistor here closer to the output or far to the output, there is a big difference. Consider the number of SET events that were observed for different pulse winds. So another work that was also done here, published in almost a little bit more than 2 years ago in VLSI SOC. So by the way, the call for VLSOC 2021 that will be in Singapore is open. And in this edition, we published these experiments where the use of Schmitt trigger helped to improve low power and the robustness of the system. So this is another point to consider nowadays is depending on which circuit we are using in our physical design, we can have a more or less power consumption and also more or less robustness. So another point also that in the past was not a big issue is that we need also, when placing the cells in a floor plane, so when we are doing the placement of cells, so traditionally the main issue was to consider to place together cells with connections between them, and also willing to reduce power congestion in the layout, and also to reduce delay. But nowadays we have also to see how is going to be the distribution of power consumption in the whole floor plane. So this is an important point also to consider nowadays in doing the placement of circuits. So our placement tools must consider also this aspect. So here you can see that there is a red region. That means that there is here a high density of consumption, and it will be important here to redo the placement in order to distribute this power consumption in the whole floor plane of the chip. So as I told also, less connections also means more space between connections. So and then having more space between connections, we are increasing reliability. So we have more articles or chapters or about this issue in the book that was published by Springer, that the origin was a summer school that was done some years ago. Another point is also related to aging. So this is also a subject that many people don't take care some time ago. And now if you put, for example, in this metal output layer that we are seeing here, if you put the output in the middle, the flow of the currents is different than when we put this contact in another position of this metal layer. That means that here in this segment E2, in this solution, the flow of current here, that means the density of current is much bigger than in the other solution. So there is a lot of evaluation simulations that were done for a 22 nanometer technology, and we have a lot of details about this in this book that is also published with Springer, that had the origin from a PhD thesis by Gracieli, and having as advisor also Professor Sachin Sapatnekar, and Gracieli now is working with Cadence in Austin. So about variability, if you see here the two words in yellow and green, for some people it's not easy to observe that the fonts being used are quite different, a little bit different. So if you design a lot of these words, here is more clear that the green one is a little bit smaller. But when we use smaller fonts here, we can see that it's very clear here that much more clear that the green one is smaller than the yellow one. But in both cases, we are using just a difference of 4 points. That means the absolute variability in these two is the same. So if you see the variability in chips, is more or less the same thing. So in the past, the amount of variability in some types of variability were similar than nowadays. The difference is that now we have very smaller technologies. The percentage of this variation is much bigger. So, so this is what you are observing nowadays when we are seeing variabilities, that now the percentage of the variability is quite high. And then we have to take care of all these problems when doing the design. Here is our work done by Gustavo Neuberger when internship has done with Infineon in Munich during his PhD thesis. So he designed a chip. So this would be a possibility of another full talk, because it was a nice work that he has done. And so it was observed the variability within a die, so inside a die, and also from die to the same wafer. And he has done the design of a circuit to measure the variability inside the wafer. So this circuit to measure variability was fabricated in these wafers. And it was fabricated in reality in two wafers that time in 130 nanometers and one in 90 nanometers. And here is just one of the example of the data that he obtained. And you can see that here, considering the position of the circuit in the wafer, and we can see a very nice change in the frequency that each one of these circuits we were able to run. So considering here same temperature and same VDD. So there is a lot of data about other experiments also in this book, also published by Springer. So we are facing here in South America the South Atlantic anomaly. So it's a good location also to measure the radiation effects. And there was done a nanosatellite more than 5 years ago. And inside there is a chip designed by UFRGS, so led by Fernanda Castensmith, and a chip designed by the Federal University of Santa Maria. And these chips are still running nowadays. When the satellite cross over our state, there is an antenna in the Space Research Institute in Santa Maria that is collecting this data. And in the beginning, we considered that this chip would run for about 2 years, but finally they are still working till nowadays. And they already recovered of some strong radiation that in the second year there was a big set of activities in the sun, and then the circuit stopped working for some time, and then it recovered after all this increased the flow of radiation. That means that the tolerance circuits that were added were working too. So about security, so it's an issue that is still an important one nowadays. So we can see security from different perspectives. So here we are discussing a little bit, considering the intellectual property of the design. So so many people in the past, as I have done before, I have done the reverse engineering of the Z8000, but many people, it was easier to do the reverse engineering because the lower number of metal layers. So now it's more complicated, but there is still people trying to do reverse engineering of commercial microprocessors or system on chip and so on. So there is a whole flow that I don't have time here to go in detail to, and then by doing the delayering the metal layers, all metal layers that we have in modern technologies, taking images of each one of these metal layers and so on, it is possible to do a image processing of all these layers and to extract the set of transistors and connection netlist, and to obtain the extraction of the gate level netlist of all these systems. So it's a huge work, but there is people doing that. So here is a photo of one of the circuits I have done reverse engineer. In this case is the Z80, not the Z8000. So I took out the metal lines that time using an acid. You have only here some left of silicon oxide between the metal and the lower level. And then it was easy here to identify the transistors and so on. Not so easy because the photos are not as big as this one, but it was possible to do that. So some layout techniques to improve security related to intellectual property of the layout. One is camouflage. So another one is transistor reordering. So the same technique that we considered before, considering reliability, no? And also the automatic generation of multi-layouts for a same function. So here is some works related to camouflage. So this is a work that was published about 80 years ago in a conference in Germany. So you can see here the authors. So here they have done the different changes in the metal layers for the same function. Or also they can use different functions with the same metal layer. So these were more complicated to people to identify which was the function that was really being implemented. So it was added some dummy metals here also to do this, to complicate the reverse engineering of each one of these layouts. So there is so not only this one, but several works showing this kind of techniques. So another one is to do the automatic generation of multi-layouts for the same function. So and for this, it's important to have a layout design automation tool. So the tools we are developing here, like Astran, now Altran, and so on, they can provide us different layouts for the same function. And you can see here, considering the transistor reordering, that we can do transistor reordering, as I told before, to improve reliability, to improve tolerance to radiation effects, but also to provide a more difficult work for the people that are doing reverse engineering. So here we have, for the same function, exactly the same function, but change the ordering of transistor. You can see here 4 different, completely different layouts. No? If you see mainly here the metal layer, no, you see the metal layers of any one of the solution is quite different. So this is also a possibility also to try to give it more difficult for people to do the reverse engineering. So here is another example also. So we have here also a change in the ordering, and then we have, if you observe the metal layer, they are different in the 2 solutions. Also, considering the 3D chips, mainly the monolithic ones. So it's much more difficult now to do the reverse engineering because you can have several tiers of transistors. So this is another point also to consider to improve the security of the intellectual property, is to use 3D chips. So some conclusions. So more and more in the IoT and IoE world, there is a demand to do dedicated chips and chips with mainly low power. So this is only way to keep this huge evolution we can face nowadays without increasing too much the number of transistors that are produced in the world year by year. So, and optimization is the key word. So in NanoCMOS, mainly to cope with this IoT and IoE world, and mainly considering the power optimization, but also considering reliability and security. So, and as I told in the beginning, more and more everything finished in a chip. So all the people that are now studying electrical engineering and computer engineering nowadays needs to know how to design a chip and how to do the design of optimized chip. So also the consideration of security must be done in different level abstractions from software to hardware implementation. And as I told you, some of the possibilities we have to cope with this is to use camouflage, to use different transistor ordering for a same function, and also using automatic layout generation tool to do the different layouts for a same logic function. So something else, if you want to see more photos of chips that I have done a long time ago, most of them I have used some acid to take out metal layer. That's why the photos are more clear. You can go to this page at Facebook. You have there a set of photos with some explanation about what is each photo. So this is my talk for today. So we are open now for questions and answers.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ricardo Reis, for the excellent talk. We have one question here in the chat by Boris Weisband. The question is, could you please comment on the importance of power density versus total power consumption for a certain IoT device?
Well, thank you for the questions. I would just like to ask it to anybody that is putting a question also to put his institution in where you are now. So thank you, Boris, for the questions. These are two issues in reality, no? And when we are working to improve or to reduce power density, we are also, in one hand, working to reduce the total power consumption. Power consumption, the optimization of power consumption is mainly in the steps of the whole design flow. So from high-level synthesis, logic synthesis, physical synthesis, and so on. So considering the ones that I have cited in the talk. So this is something that we have to take care during the whole design flow. And power density is also mainly related to the steps of the floor planning, as I also have in one of the slides. So when we are doing the placement of the cells, we have also to consider this point to try to distribute the power consumptions in the whole floor plane of the chip, no? So it's not a kind of power dense versus total power, but there are two different issues that there is not a compromise between them. So we try to reduce power consumption in the whole design flow, and then when we are in the physical one, we try also to do a better distribution of the power around all the chip.
So Boris is saying he is from the McGill University in Montreal, Canada. Thanks, Professor Reis. So I have one question. This question that you comment right in the beginning about the hardware accelerators and also the dark silicon. Is there any these new technologies like the monolithic 3D solves this problem? Like try to solve this problem, also contributes to solve this problem?
Well, when we are using 3D circuits, it helps to improve the wire length, no?
Yes.
So considering delay, it's a nice option to. And doing monolithic 3D, it's also we can have a lower space between tiers, no, between layers, no, between transistors, no, and then also using monolithic, we have also smallest 3D, vias, and so this is a solution that it will be great to have in commercial chips in a near future. There is already some circuits that have been done. So this is a good way to cope with this. But considering the dark silicon, it's mainly related to how we are constructing the architecture of each one of the circuits, because for the same architecture of a system on chip, considering the I/O pins, from the outside of the, we can have a very different internal organizations or internal architectures, So when doing this, it's important now, I think, more and more to have specific functions, because when you are using a hardware accelerator, it's dedicated to just one function. And then it means less transistors to implement this function, and also the lower size of connections and so on. So this is the best way to do a function inside, is to have a specific module for it. So we can maybe expect in the future to have some kind of microprocessor architectures or system on chip architectures where we have only a large set of hardware accelerator and just a small CPU to manage the communication between them. So
yeah, it appears to be that Apple is something like that, so, but not as
not only that.
Yeah, not this extreme. There's another question from Boris Weisband. His question wants to know if the thermal management is a key issue for these systems.
Yes, but well, depends on the system here. The issue is bigger or no. So when nowadays, in one hand, when we have a lot of advantage by using 3D chips, we have also a bigger issue considering the dissipation of power produced in each layer. So we have to consider some strategies to be able to do the dissipation of this energy. And also doing 3D chips, it's important also to do this optimization, power optimization, by reducing the number of components in each block. So I don't know if this was really the question, but so this is something that we have to mainly take care during the design. So any improvement in optimization will help to improve power consumption, and and for sure there is also all the technology issues that is being improved by people that are working on the development of technology to fabricate TSV 3D circuits and monolithic 3D circuits.
Okay. So you don't have more questions, I think. So I'd like to thank all the attendees, and don't know if Professor Reis wants to give some few words.
So thank you very much again, and see you.
Okay, see you. Have a nice weekend for everyone.
Bye-bye.